Shalom, Raphael Har, founder of UnitedJerusalem.com, the home of United Jerusalem Freedom Alliance, UJFA. The question we ask those that want to divide Jerusalem: is the state of Israel entitled to remain sovereign over Judaism's holiest place, the Temple Mount? Presently, the most significant threat to the free world is the Jihadism, the global Islamic supremacist movement. Islamism today takes the cake in place of communism and Nazi fascism. The message for United Jerusalem is about freedom versus tyranny and tolerance versus intolerance. A universal message for all who cherish or desire freedom, referencing mixed messages about politics, law, religion, history, and security causes much confusion. However, all the above require freedom and tolerance in order to operate at its highest levels. Understanding the strategic goal of the Islamic theocrats waging war against us who live in freedom is vital to understanding why the status of Jerusalem is critical to the security of the free world and why it must remain united exclusively under Israel's sovereignty. Maintaining a united Jerusalem is where the global Islamic supremacist movement for world domination ends, preventing the Islamic jihadists from conquering Judaism and Christendom's holiest places. After all, the global Islamic supremacist movement cannot claim to dominate the Judean-Christian free world without conquering Judaism and Christendom's holiest places in Jerusalem. Jerusalem, therefore, is the physical, spiritual, and civilizational front line of the free world. Recall when Transjordan, now known as Jordan, illegally occupied and divided Jerusalem, as it participated in the 1948 War of Annihilation against Israel's rebirth. She destroyed 58 of our synagogues in the Holy Walled City, exiled all the Jews therein, and used headstones from the oldest cemetery in the world, the Mount of Olives, in order to pave roads and latrines. They, Jordan, strictly limited Jews and Christians from accessing the holiest and holy places of their respective faiths. Upon Israel's liberation of Jerusalem in early June of 1967 from Jordan, Transjordan, illegal occupation and division, when the Arab Middle East again attempted to destroy the fledgling reborn state of Israel, Israel unified Jerusalem and established an open, secure, and free city for all faiths. Israel's sovereignty today maintains this reality with unprecedented sacrifices to her own historical and religious rights. Live with honor or die in fear. The global Islamic supremacist movement's strategic goal in reestablishing a Sharia-compliant Islamic theocratic empire, caliphate, is why the global Islamic supremacist movement wages war against the free world. The moral values of the West are antithetical to Islamic ideological theology. Israel's existence, therefore, is an affront to Islam and Sharia law and is perceived as representative of said free world. We must recall that the Berlin Wall fell without a shot being fired. The West taught the world the bankruptcy of communism, as must be done with Islamism. After all, this is an ideological, civilizational struggle. Time to put aside the old PC political correctness in exchange for the new PC pride and courage. Let us remember what U.S. President Barack Obama said at the February 6th, 2014 National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. And I quote, "As we support Israelis and Palestinians as they engage in direct talks, we've made clear that lasting peace will require freedom of worship and access to holy sites for all faiths." Close quote. We are at United Jerusalem Freedom Alliance in agreement with that which President Obama does, quote unquote, require for lasting peace, quote unquote, namely freedom of worship and access to holy sites for all faiths, quote unquote. Presently, this is not the case in Jerusalem. At Judaism's holiest place, the Temple Mount, the current administrator of Temple Mount is the Jordanian Muslim Waqf, which has in place draconian restrictions that deny the freedom of worship and access to holy sites for all faiths, with exception to Muslims. President Obama, the Jordanian Muslim Waqf, does not meet your stated requirement for lasting peace, quote unquote. Therefore, we of UJFA, I and many others, advocate the removal and replacement of the current administrator of Temple Mount and the establishment of a new management regime that will carry out that which you, quote unquote, require for lasting peace, quote unquote. We ask you, I ask you, to walk the walk for freedom's sake, not just talk the talk. To be pro-Israel is to be pro-freedom of religion. Speech, assembly, press, free, fair elections, women's rights, minority rights, etc. Right now, an historical moral consensus needs to evolve, to be created into a critical mass. Recall, the world did not listen to Hitler. He spelled out his intention, as does the global Islamic supremacist movement today. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing. Understanding and addressing the global Islamist supremacist movement's call for millions of martyrs, quote unquote, to march on Jerusalem, quote unquote, in order to, quote unquote, liberate it and make it the capital of their Sharia-compliant Islamic theocratic empire or caliphate, is essential knowledge in defining and ultimately defeating this totalitarian ideology. Furthermore, it should be understood and known that the refusal of and by the nations of the free world to recognize Israel's sovereign right to Judaism's holiest place in places is one of the greatest, if not greatest, inspiration for the global Islamic supremacist movement. The time to remove this inspiration is now. We must stop empowering and emboldening the enemies of freedom and peace by standing with Israel's exclusive right to remain sovereign over a free and open to all Jerusalem. After all, the contempt of the West's refusal to recognize United Jerusalem is to its own detriment. Muslims know that Temple Mount is Judaism's holiest place. They see the world refusing to recognize Israeli rights and thank you for inviting their jihad by rewarding you with escalating terror. The more the world stands against Israel, the stronger the global Islamic supremacist movement has become. Now is the time to realize the negative effects of this paradigm and correct it. Allah has delivered Temple Mount and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Judaism and Christendom's holiest places in our hands is the last message we who are free want to hear broadcast from every mosque and madrasa in the world. Just imagine the frenzy. Could this start World War III? Most likely. Understand that there is no Arab-Israeli conflict or Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israel exists in a state of war since her rebirth in 1948. Israel is the subject of ongoing, never-ending Islamic, jihadist, inspired, and initiated warfare aimed at her destruction. To those that advocate the creation of a brand new state of Palestine, I ask them, from 1949 to 1967, Israel did not control the so-called West Bank and Gaza, No Jews, no settlements existed in what today the PLO, PA, and company defines as quote-unquote historic Palestine. Why wasn't Palestine established during those 19 years from 1949 to 1967? And the answer is self-evident. For this conflict, this war ongoing, is not about land or politics. It's about Israel's existence. There are no Gaza wars or Lebanon wars or intifadas, etc. These are battles ongoing in the same war for Israel's Jewish independence in her ancestral homeland. I call upon those of goodwill to help Israel to finally achieve her independence once and for all. And by doing so, together, we will defeat the global Islamic supremacist movement. And for those of goodwill who believe that Israel needs to make peace with the Arab Islamic world, I agree. However, if you're going to use the words Arab, Islamic, and peace in the same sentence, that obligates you to stop the Arab Islamists from slaughtering each other. After all, they cannot make peace with their declared enemy until they live in peace amongst themselves. So therefore, I implore you to get to work on that. And when you've done that, call me and we can discuss the future. Remember and know, terrorism is a tactic in asymmetrical warfare. One cannot defeat a tactic. We need to defeat the ideology that creates the terrorists. We need to uphold, stand strong, and defend our freedoms and our moral values. That's why United Jerusalem Freedom Alliance is a pro-freedom and justice advocacy movement. Please visit UnitedJerusalem.com. Join UJFA, the United Jerusalem Freedom Alliance. Shalom.